The world does not fear the violent, it fears the lucid. It fears the man who no longer seeks to belong, the man who has torn through the veil of comfort, morality, and tradition to become something terrifying, himself. Not a product of his time, not a slave to culture, not a servant to opinion, but a mind sharpened into a weapon, a soul hardened into steel, a will forged in solitude. This kind of man walks silently, but his presence roars. He doesn't raise his voice, reality bends before him. Because to build a mind so strong it terrifies people is not to become loud. It is to become immovable. Strength of the body impresses the weak. Strength of the mind haunts them. A powerful mind is dangerous not because it seeks to dominate others, but because it cannot be dominated. It cannot be seduced by trends, shamed by crowds, or broken by suffering. It sees through everything, ideologies, social rituals, even love, and decides what is real, what is useful, and what is not. This terrifies the world because most people are addicted to illusion. They live in echo chambers. They survive on affirmation, and when someone appears who no longer needs the approval of the herd panics. You must become that kind of man, but it comes at a price. You must bury your former self. You must become alone, truly alone. You must cut through every comforting lie you've been fed since birth. That goodness is obedience, that peace is weakness, that humility is virtue. You must replace these with your own truths. Not borrowed, not inherited, discovered, and through that discovery your mind will become a fortress, impenetrable, ruthless, free. You were born a slave and you didn't even know it. From the moment you opened your eyes, they gave you a name, a flag, a religion, a morality. You were taught to say please, to sit still, to seek permission. Before you could even form your own thoughts, others were already thinking for you. They handed you scripts, rules, values, and you obeyed. Not because you agreed, but because you were too weak to question. This is how the inner slave is born, not through chains, but through quiet submission. And the terrifying truth, most people will die with that slave still ruling their mind. The inner slave whispers in every moment of doubt. It tells you to stay silent when you want to speak. It tells you to apologize for your strength. It convinces you to conform, to soften your edges, to bend your will, to keep others comfortable. It wants you to be liked, to be accepted, to be safe. But the mind that terrifies people is not safe. It is dangerous because it obeys nothing but truth, and to reach that kind of mind, the slave within must be destroyed. Killing the inner slave is not an act of rage. It is an act of awareness. You begin by questioning everything you've inherited. Ask yourself, where did my values come from? Who taught me what's right or wrong, and why should I believe them? Strip it all down, morality, tradition, even your own personality, tear it apart. Because most of what you think is you is just programming. If your beliefs were handed to you, they are not yours. They are the chains you wear with pride. The man who begins to kill the slave starts to feel the terror of freedom. There is no one to blame now, no one to lean on. You stand naked in front of existence, without instruction, without validation. It's a kind of psychological death. But what rises from those ashes is something few ever see. A free mind, a mind that doesn't flinch under pressure, a mind that chooses its path, not because it is easy or praised, but because it is true. This kind of mind scares people because it cannot be manipulated. It doesn't beg for inclusion. It doesn't explain itself. It sees through virtue signaling, empty gestures, and crowd hysteria. And when it speaks, the world listens, not because it shouts, but because it means what it says. Every word is earned, every thought is chosen. When you kill the inner slave, you begin to walk differently. You no longer ask, is this allowed? You ask, is this real? And if it is, you do it, without apology, without hesitation. That kind of power, born from self-overcoming, cannot be bought or borrowed. It must be built, brick by brick, scar by scar, choice by choice. And when it is complete, you will terrify not because you intend to, but because your very existence exposes the chains others still wear. Pain is not your enemy, it is your tutor. While the masses flee discomfort like frightened children, the one who seeks to build a mind of terrifying strength moves toward it, deliberately, even joyfully. This is the difference between the ordinary and the exceptional. The ordinary man suffers passively and learns nothing. The exceptional man suffers actively and extracts wisdom. Pain refines thought. It purges illusion. It breaks the weak parts of the psyche and forces the soul to choose, decay or ascend. To embrace productive suffering is not to become a martyr. It is to become an alchemist, turning agony into clarity. Nietzsche understood what modern minds try so hard to forget, that the greatest transformations come not through comfort, but through crisis. A mind that has never been shattered cannot be trusted. It is untested, soft, breakable. But a mind that has been split open by loss, rejection, isolation, and has still chosen to stand upright, to keep thinking, to keep becoming, that is the mind people fear, because that mind is no longer held together by the approval of others. It is held together by will, by a flame inside that cannot be extinguished from the outside. The world teaches you to avoid pain, take the pill, numb the emotion, distract yourself. But this is how they keep you weak, dependent, fragile, easily ruled. A strong mind, a terrifying mind, is built by doing the opposite. You stare into the discomfort, you feel it fully, and then you ask it questions. Why are you here? What are you trying to teach me? You dig deep until the suffering reveals its secret. Every pain has one, and when you extract it, you evolve. This is the essence of productive suffering. It is not passive endurance. It is active confrontation. You don't just suffer for suffering's sake. You suffer towards something. You allow the pressure to sharpen you. You use the heartbreak to understand your attachments. You use the fear to uncover your limits. You use the failure to refine your aim. In this way, pain becomes your training ground, your forge, your philosopher's stone. And while others drown in theirs, you rise through yours. People are terrified of this kind of strength because it makes you unbreakable. When they see you calm in chaos, composed in crisis, smiling in solitude, they are confused, even offended. Why aren't you collapsing? Why aren't you seeking pity? Why aren't you begging for someone to save you? Because you've already been broken, and you built something stronger in the ruins. You turned your wounds into windows. Your scars don't decorate you. They define you. They are proof that you have passed through fire and come out more dangerous. To embrace productive suffering is to declare that nothing external will define your inner state, that every blow life delivers will be met not with complaint, but with the question, what now can I learn? This makes your mind terrifying, not because it is cruel, but because it is fearless. Most people speak too often and think too little. Their words are noise, their thoughts borrowed, their insights shallow. They parrot what they've heard, believing repetition is wisdom, and in doing so, they reveal the weakness of their minds. But the terrifying mind, silent, disciplined, selective, only speaks what it has conquered. It does not regurgitate opinion. It speaks from the battlefield of experience, from wounds turned into weapons, from truths bled for and earned. And when such a mind opens its mouth, the world listens, not because it shouts, but because it has something to say. To speak what you have conquered is to speak with authority, not the kind given by a title or diploma, but the kind that emerges from lived reality. You do not give advice on pain unless you have suffered. You do not talk about freedom unless you have fought for it. You do not preach strength unless you have been weak and overcome it. In a world addicted to appearances, this kind of authenticity is rare, and it is feared. Because the moment you speak with earned clarity, you cut through illusions, you expose the frauds, and you leave no place for the insecure to hide. Nietzsche believed that truth must be hard. 1. It must be forged in solitude, in conflict, in fire. And only then is it worthy of being spoken. Most people talk to be accepted. The strong speak to express what is. There is a silence in them that precedes every sentence, a weight in their words that cannot be faked. They are not interested in convincing. they are interested in revealing. This is why their words disturb, because they are not entertainment. They are weapons, they do not flatter, they expose. A terrifying mind does not react to every impulse, every provocation, every opinion tossed in its direction. It observes, it contemplates, it allows ideas to ferment in silence until they are potent. Then, and only then, does it speak, and when it does, the words carry the force of someone who has battled with the thought, not merely entertained it. You cannot outtalk such a person. You can only listen or run. This is what separates thinkers from talkers. The talker needs an audience. The thinker speaks even in solitude, even into the void, because the truth demands expression, not applause. The terrifying mind speaks from a place of necessity, not vanity. And that is why it cannot be dismissed, because the mind that has conquered an idea becomes its living proof. So if you want your words to matter, if you want them to cut, to move, to dominate, first conquer what you would say. Live it, bleed for it, master it, then speak, not to impress, but to reveal. Speak like a philosopher, not a performer. Speak with scars, not slogans, because in a world drowning in noise, the voice that speaks only what it has conquered is the one that silences all others. A strong mind is not built by constantly filling it, but by refining what it allows in. Most people consume indiscriminately news, opinions, entertainment, praise, fear. They are sponges, soaking up the world's chaos and wondering why they feel so lost, anxious, directionless. Their minds are cluttered temples, desecrated by junk. But the terrifying mind is different. It is selective. Ruthlessly so, it filters. It questions. It protects its inner sanctum like a warrior king guards his throne. Because it knows one truth above all, what you allow into your mind becomes your mind. The crowd leaves reactively. Every headline dictates their mood. Every trend redefines their belief. Every insult wounds them. Every compliment enslaves them. They are psychological marionettes, dancing to strings pulled by forces they don't even recognize. But a powerful mind does not allow itself to be possessed by what is unworthy. It examines every input. Is this true? Is this useful? Is this mine? It treats the mind as a sacred space, not a dumping ground, and this refusal to allow the trivial to dominate terrifies people, because it means you are not accessible. Not easily moved, not easily controlled. Nietzsche knew that most people are intoxicated by the superficial. They crave stimulation over understanding, noise over meaning. But he also knew that strength comes not from knowing everything, but from mastering the essential. A terrifying mind doesn't boast of how much it knows. It cuts through complexity with precision. It discards the unnecessary. It edits its thoughts like a sculptor chisels stone, removing everything that is not truth. And in this mental discipline lies its danger. Because when such a person walks into a room, they are not full of opinions. They are full of clarity. And clarity, in a fog of delusion, is a threat. To protect your mind is to build a fortress against mediocrity. It means refusing to entertain stupidity just because it's popular. It means ignoring gossip, cheap praise, fear, mongering, virtue signaling. It means choosing silence over noise, solitude over distraction, meaning over comfort. And when you do this consistently, your very presence becomes unnerving, because you don't react the way others do. You don't panic, gossip, flatter, or beg. You think, you observe, you choose your thoughts like weapons. And people fear that, because they can no longer predict or manipulate you. This psychological selectivity isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. You do not let garbage into a temple. You do not let lies into your bloodstream. You do not let the crowd define your direction. You choose, and in doing so, you begin to construct a mind so sharp, so focused, so invulnerable to nonsense, that it becomes a force. People will call you cold, distant, elitist. But that's only because your discipline confronts their disorder. So protect your mind, guard it like a sacred flame. Refuse entry to anything that weakens, distracts, or poisons, not to become aloof, but to become pure. Because when the noise of the world no longer lives inside you, your mind doesn't just grow strong, it becomes dangerous. A terrifying mind is forged not only in strength, but in the precision of its perceptions. It sees what others refuse to see. While most glide across the surface of life, content with appearances, the one with a sharpened intellect cuts beneath the skin of things. They notice what is not said, what is concealed behind gestures, what trembles beneath the calm voice. They detect contradictions, masks, tensions, and they remember. They watch the world not with passive eyes, but with the relentless curiosity of a surgeon dissecting the body of truth. This capacity for psychological insight is not just powerful, it is unnerving. To see through people is not a parlor trick, it is a dangerous gift. Because when you understand someone's fears, desires, and patterns, they are no longer a mystery to you. They are readable, influenceable, sometimes even controllable. Most people live in self-deception. They create stories about who they are and project those stories to the world. But the terrifying mind pierces those stories instantly. It does not hate people for their illusions. It simply doesn't participate in them. This detachment allows for a chilling level of clarity. You no longer get caught in drama, you analyze it. You no longer argue, you observe, and when you speak, it's with the weight of having seen. Nietzsche warned us that seeing too clearly can be isolating. The more truth you perceive, the less company you will keep. Most friendships are built on mutual illusions. Most relationships survive on the shared denial of each other's flaws. But the terrifying mind is incapable of such blindness. It sees both the beauty and the rot in people, and chooses honesty over comfort. This kind of perception makes people uneasy, because it demands they confront parts of themselves they'd rather ignore. And if you can see through others, you will often find that they either fear you, envy you, or try to bring you down. But the mind that sees through the world must first see through itself. You cannot read others if you are still lying to yourself. So, the terrifying mind begins its work inward. It questions its own motives, dismantles its own delusions, confronts its own shadows. This self-examination sharpens its ability to analyze others. Because once you have faced your own chaos, nothing in another person can surprise or manipulate you. Their games are already familiar. You've played them against yourself, and now you are immune. This deep perception becomes a form of dominance, not because you seek power over others, but because others instinctively sense that they cannot deceive you. They either respect you or retreat from you. You unsettle the false, attract the real, and strip interactions of pretense. In a world built on facades, that is a form of psychological terror, because most people would rather be lied to gently than seen clearly. So sharpen your perception. Read people deeply, not to exploit, but to understand, not to manipulate, but to liberate yourself from illusion. And in doing so, you'll build a mind that others cannot fool, cannot predict, and above all, cannot ignore. The terrifying mind does not chase attention. It commands it through stillness. In a world obsessed with noise, movement, and validation, silence becomes the most threatening force of all. People who must constantly speak reveal their inner instability. They talk not to express truth, but to fill the unbearable silence of their own insecurity. But the strong mind sits comfortably in silence because it is not empty. It is full of thought, observation, restraint. Silence in this case is not absence. It is concentration. It is power held back, not out of fear but out of control. When you enter a room and say nothing, you force others to project. They wonder what you're thinking. They imagine your judgments. They become aware of their own behavior. This is how presence is forged, not by volume but by gravity. And this gravity only belongs to those who have mastered the storm within. If you cannot silence yourself, your words are worthless. If your mind is chaotic, your speech will betray it. But if you have trained your mind to observe, to delay, to reflect, then even your silence speaks. And what it says is this: I am not moved by the need to be seen, because I see. Nietzsche knew the value of retreat, not as weakness, but as a gathering of force. The terrifying mind often appears passive on the surface, precisely because it is thinking 10 moves ahead. It is studying, storing, testing, filtering. The average person believes that power lies in performance, but the one who truly understands human nature knows that mystery is a weapon. When others don't know what you want, what you think, what you feel, they become uncertain. And uncertainty is control. If you're unreadable, you are untouchable. And if you are untouchable, you become a presence people cannot easily dismiss. Stillness terrifies because it reflects. Like a calm mirror, it forces people to confront themselves. When you don't interrupt, when you don't compete for air, when you just watch, others begin to unravel. They rush to fill the space, to justify themselves, to guess at your thoughts, and in that moment they reveal themselves completely. Your stillness becomes their confession booth, because the mind that does not need to dominate is already in control. In psychological warfare, restraint is more effective than reaction. Most people are predictable. Insult them, and they retaliate. Praise them, and they melt. But the mind that remains still in the face of praise or insult is unreadable, and therefore invincible. It cannot be baited, cannot be flattered, cannot be moved by emotional noise. It sees through manipulation because it has conquered its own inner triggers. And once you've silenced the inner pull to react, the world loses its grip on you. So cultivate stillness. Do not mistake it for weakness. It is the final form of strength. In your silence, let your mind sharpen. In your stillness, let others show their hand. Speak only when your words can dominate the room, not through volume, but through weight. Because the mind that can remain still in the storm is not just feared, it is followed. A terrifying mind is not only powerful in solitude, it becomes truly unstoppable when it shapes reality around it. This is the final stage of intellectual strength, not merely to endure the world or survive within it, but to bend it to your will without ever raising your voice. The average man reacts to circumstances, adapts, conforms, adjusts his posture depending on what the world throws at him. But the terrifying mind does not move around reality, it reshapes it. It imposes its own vision, even if silently. It becomes the axis around which others must pivot, not by force, but by presence. You don't need to shout to change a room. You don't need to plead to be followed. Influence begins not with words, but with inner clarity. People trust decisiveness. They are magnetized by someone who walks as if he knows where he's going. This is why those with the strongest minds often lead effortlessly. They are immune to the chaos around them. Their calm becomes contagious, their focus intimidating, their rejection of triviality makes others feel small, and in that feeling of smallness, others surrender, they lean in, they conform to you. This is how a powerful mind silently dominates, by becoming the standard others adjust themselves to. Nietzsche would say, the superior man does not descend into the madness of the crowd. He becomes a force they orbit. And to do this, you must first burn away everything within you that is dependent on approval. The terrifying mind has no need to be liked, understood, or praised. It seeks truth and power, not comfort. That absence of need is what makes it dangerous, because when you can walk alone, when you can stand still while others panic, when you can remain rooted while others sway, you become the fixed point in a world of flux. Others will test you, envy you, try to rattle you, but you will not move, and eventually they will bend. This is not magic. It is discipline. It is the result of hundreds of inner deaths. You have killed the weak parts of yourself. You have buried the child that cried for recognition, the adolescent who sought applause, the adult who feared rejection. You have replaced them with steel, with vision, with a quiet, unwavering certainty that no external noise can shake. And from that certainty flows influence, not because you demand it, but because others sense they cannot fake it the way you have earned it. This final form of psychological power isn't flashy. It doesn't need to announce itself. It operates in silence, invisibly commanding, altering dynamics without effort. You don't dominate through intimidation. You dominate through stability. You walk into rooms with nothing to prove, and because you need nothing, you control everything. You don't chase power, it gravitates to you, and that, in the end, is what terrifies people the most. The realization that the quietest one in the room is the one shaping the room itself.